Welcome to the question and responses for dysautonomia. Now, please like this video. Please subscribe to our channel. It's going to help us grow and spread this vital, life-saving information. Question 1 from Edward Esteban. I have been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. Can my body heal? What if you had a tumor removed from your spinal cord? Absolutely. We work with people with serious chronic diseases, and I've come across a lot of different spinal cord tumors. Myelin, there's so many different traumas that can happen to the spine. And know that an autonomic nervous system is located in the pelvis and the cervical spine. So even patients born, I've got a few patients with hemicephalic, half their brain wasn't formed, and they have a potential for recovery. So whatever the trauma was, whatever the status your body is now, you can get better. How much? It's dependent. And that's why you need hard data. So none of this stuff is guesswork. Physical, chemical, emotional. Physical, we need static and stress x-rays of every aspect of the body. So static x-ray and then a stress x-ray. We're going to take bending films of the thoracic area. We're going to take bending films of the lumbar so we can see any mechanical distortion, see what's moving and what's not moving. Then we have to change the gut. Okay, and this is going to be fermented foods. It's literally healing that gut, because that is 80 to 90% of your immune system. It's also how your body regenerates tissue. Then we have to change the sleep pattern. So we teach everyone sleep restrictive therapy to change that circadian rhythm so their body can regenerate at night. Then we teach them how to reprogram the brain, because if you practice stress on a regular basis where you're always in a stress state. And just think of it, if you and me go from sitting to standing and you hurt, if that pain is associated with an emotional component, that will do a cascade of putting you in a significant emotional stress. And emotional stress, I'm telling you, is just like getting hit by a car. If I go from sitting to standing and I have a little bit of a pain, I think, yeah, well, I just got off the tractor. I drove in last night for my clinic in Mexico. There's no emotional attachment. It'll just go away when I start moving. So, and look at the physical, chemical, emotional stress. And whatever status your health is, there can be an improvement by addressing the underlying stressors. Because every human being, we have two switches. You can be in a stress response or regenerative response. And that is balanced by the autonomic nervous system. And you can recover. How much? It's based on the hard data. None of this stuff is guesswork. And I'll help in any way I can, Edward. Just give me a call, and pretty easy to get a hold of. Question 2 from Karen Murphy Yoga. My daughter has this condition and not meds. 11 years of severe anxiety, trauma, and severe bullying in schools. Raise your hand if you were bullied in school. I know. That school was tough. Can't eat hardly anything, underweight, fatigue, sleep disorders, breathless, dizziness, heat disorders, etc. Worn out with worry as her mother. Daughter is 26 years old. God bless you, dear. Yeah, parenting never ends. Let's get your daughter healthy. And you got to break it down, because right now we're in a medical system that is insane. They look at the body's adaptive response has a disease or a condition that needs to be medically altered. Why she's not on meds? Thank God. That's good parenting. Okay, so let's break it down. Physical, chemical, emotional stress. We look at the entire structure, okay, and that's going to be static and stress x-rays. We can teach her sleep restriction therapy, neurolinguistic programming, and I got videos on all of this stuff. But you have to do an objective analysis. So this way she is no longer a victim based on past traumas, because the more that you relive that past trauma, your brain literally gets better at achieving it. So when you're thinking about stress and anxiety, the brain literally gets hardwired into it. I mean, when I was doing human dissections, I'm doing coronal sections of the brain, and you can literally see structures in the brain from consistent sensory input into the brain. The brain literally changes its hardwiring. So reprogramming that brain, and we do two different aspects that we teach every patient. Neurolinguistic programming, because every human being has around 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and those thoughts fall in loops because 90% of those thoughts are the same you had the day before. So we have to reprogram. And luckily, the frontal lobe where anxiety, stress, and depression live, okay, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, it's programmed by repetition, not belief. And so this way we empower the patient by identifying and showing literally the physical stress that's currently there and the potential for recovery. We teach that sleep pattern change, get the gut healed, look at the live blood cell analysis, literally show the autonomic nervous system on a heart rate variability. And then that empowers the patient to where it's not just a victim of past traumas. It's literally the body adapting correctly to those past traumas. And then we can change that adaptive response into a regenerative response, because every human being, you could be in stress or regeneration. Let's get her in regeneration, and I'll help in any way I can. Karen, you're a great parent. God bless you. But also look that worrying does not help. And if you look at every religion on the planet, do they say that worrying more about stuff helps? No, it's the opposite. Worrying doesn't add a minute to your life. Give it up to God. If you have a spiritual nature about you, or if you understand that your body is more energy than matter, beautiful. If not, let's look at facts and data and get your daughter healthy. God bless you. Great parenting. Question 3 from Ave Cour. You did not state sleep disorders such as REM, not paralyzed in a dream state. No, there's a lot of sleep disorders. Okay, yeah, we didn't go over them. Absolutely. Because they're an adaptive process. You got to figure to treat the end result of an adaptive process. And when you look at sleep paralysis, this is literally every human being is in a coma during that REM state of sleep. But when you have stimulus, auditory, visual, okay, tactile stimulus, that gets you out of the REM state. And so this means that you're getting a sensory interruption from communication. It's called afferentation, because that brain needs constant sensory input from the body in order to adapt correctly. So when you're looking at any type of sleep disorder, 3 things you got to check: physical, chemical, emotional. So this means there's an alteration in afferentation or sensory input to the brain. And so you look at the structure, static and stress x-rays, you measure the heart rate variability so we can find out, is the body in stress or regeneration, sympathetic, parasympathetic. We look at the gut health because that's where neurotransmitters are. That's the gut brain. We look at movement. What we do 100% of the time when we have people with sleep disorders, we'll just sit them on a bench where their legs dangle. We'll put a weight on the legs, on the ankles, in order to open up the knee joint, because the knee joint has phenomenal sensory input. I mean, you're talking joint mechanoreceptors, largest joint in the body. It's amazing. But then we have them swing their legs. And what you'll see is they're not able to keep a symmetrical rhythm. It's going to be hard for them to do that. And so we literally, with physical stressors, we have to reprogram that brain through consistent symmetrical movements. And we do the arms, we do breathing, everything to get that brain out of the stress state. So sleep disorders, absolutely. But understand the sleep disorder is not what you're going after. If you look at all diseases that the body is adapting correctly based on the stimulus, so you have to change that stimulus to the brain, then the body can adapt correctly. If you're going to treat the adaptive response, and think how stupid this is, okay? The body is self-healing and self-regulating. Every animal species on the planet is self-healing and self-regulating. But in humans, the doctor is smarter than your own physiology. So they look at high blood pressure as a disease, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, which none of those are diseases. They're all the body adapting to an underlying stressor. I know you want to say, duh. Okay, so you you look at the underlying stressor, and then the blood pressure normalizes, cholesterol normalizes, blood sugar normalizes, sleep patterns normalize, thought patterns change. So look at the underlying factor, and you will see your body can recover. And I'll help in any way I can. And sorry about mispronouncing the name, but I love that French aspect. Question 4 from Mystical Art. I developed POTS after a mold exposure, but before that, this is the key. In 2011, a motorcycle accident, jaw fractured. That's when I started to have nocturnal panic attacks. 2018 C-section, that's when I noticed dizziness when standing. Mold exposure last as September, developed reactive hypoglycemia, histamine issues, POTS, and SVT, cardiac issues. So can the autonomic nervous system also cause reactive hypoglycemia? I've had every test done, and the doctors can't find out why I have that. I'm not diabetic. Oh, God. I'm giggling because the doctors are so ignorant of this. Okay, mold exposure. Let's start off with that. When you look at mold, bacteria eat mold. Okay, so there's some people that can have mold exposure, not have any kind of an issue. Some people walk by a house with mold and they're going to have an issue. So it's mold isn't a predator. Bacteria aren't predators. Viruses aren't predators. They're scavengers. They go after damaged tissue. So your history is brilliant. Okay, fracturing a jaw from a motorcycle accident. And this is typical what trauma doctors do. You see a broken jaw, absolutely, and they look at the jaw as the problem. But knowing that this was a motorcycle accident and your body had a hit with enough force to break one of the strongest bones in the body, okay, do you think the neck might have been involved? Absolutely. But they're not skilled to look at the structural components of the neck. When they look at the neck x-ray, you could have a reverse curve, lateral deviation, thoracic deviation, and as long as there's no fractures or tumors, they're going to say it's normal. I know it sounds crazy, but they're not taught how to correct structural deviations, and they're not taught that structural deviations can change proprioception, or that information going up into the brain. So the brain is self-healing and self-regulating. The body is self-healing and self-regulating, but it's based on the input to that brain. So absolutely, an autonomic nervous system, it regulates yourself. Your body is self-regulating. So now we have to look at each aspect. But really, if you look at all the stress responses that you have, the blood sugar issue, the POTS, the cardiac issues, the heart has two nerve supplies, one from the neck, one from the upper thoracic area. So you're telling me that the structural components of that trauma that you experienced way back in 2011, okay, are literally damaged the cardiac center, the upper cervical and upper thoracic to the heart. Absolutely. So we have to get you to a good chiropractor that's going to take an x-ray, and we would take static and stress x-rays to identify the structural problem. And then you look at the gut, because the mold exposure indicates that you have a leaky gut, and that also indicates the histamine response. Like I'll see people with red feet, and I'll touch the skin on the feet. And you can do this with your feet, and you're going to see it's true. Anywhere you touch, it turns white, and that's excess histamines. And that means that there's tissue damage. And with your mold exposure a sensitivity, that means that there's going to be a leaky gut. So we have to change the physical stress identified on the static and stress x-rays, chemical stress, which is going to be poor sleep. So we have to reset that circadian rhythm, emotional and heal the gut. So that's going to be fermented foods. But we got to measure that autonomic nervous system with the heart rate variability, because every human being can be in stress or regeneration. And you have been in a stress response since at least 2011. And the body can regenerate. Absolutely. The autonomic nervous system adapting to that sensory input from the brain from that past trauma. And I'm telling you right now, that was very good detective work on your part, because a lot of people just play the victim. And reading this, you do not have that victim mentality. Let's get you healthy, and I'll help in any way I can. Question 5 from Neon Black Apache. I love the names. I think I have this. I can't even watch this right now. I can't handle the feelings. I'm with you. I'm with you. It's sometimes it's so overwhelming. Okay, like when I saw it, during the time of mass insanity, where people are saying, "Don't walk on the beach because of the COVID," or wear a mask when you're walking across a restaurant. And now we know that advice was absolutely insane. I could not watch the news because it was just like mass insanity. I'm with you there. Okay, but let's break it down. Okay, brother or sister, whoever Neon Black Apache is, let's break it down. We have three things: physical, chemical, and emotional stress that we have to address. And obviously, okay, this is going to be one of the emotional stressors. So we have to look at the gut where the neurotransmitters are produced, the gut brain connection. Then we have to look at the physical stressors because anxiety, stress, depression are all features of a part of the brain called the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is programmed by the small brain on the back called the cerebellum. And that cerebellum gets its input from the position and motion of the vertebrae. Also, the hypothalamus, which controls just about everything. It controls the pituitary, controls everything. It controls the hormone function. And that also gets its input from the position and motion of the vertebrae. So structural, we got to look at the entire structure, static and stress x-rays. And I'm talking from the pelvis to the skull. Okay, then we have to look at the autonomic nervous system, and you can measure that through heart rate variability. It's so simple. And then, and this is cool, after identifying the problem, addressing the problem by correcting the physical and chemical, and we also teach how to reprogram the emotional component, because the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And so if you're practicing anxiety and stress and anxiety and stress, which really as a species kept us alive. I mean, when you're walking down a street and you see a dark alley, the majority of people are going to be, anxious, and they're thinking about looking for danger and things. Of course, if you're skilled in martial arts and you want to demonstrate your skills, you're looking at that as an opportunity. So it's not the stimulus. It's really based on your perception of the environment. And you can reprogram that frontal lobe through meditation practices. We teach neurolinguistic programming and breathing techniques and visualization. And so, Neon Black Apache, God bless you. I'll help in any way I can, my friend. Now, if your question wasn't answered, because we still have this censorship thing going on, go to the drbvip.com site, drbvip.com, and there I answer without censorship. So God bless you for these questions. They were amazing. Stay healthy, my friends. Realize the planet was built for you and you were built for the planet. God bless you all.